If I'm experiencing anxiety and I'm at an event, nothing will give me more anxiety than jazz hands. Because at that point, I'm looking around like, is something going down? Is there a volcano exploding? What does this mean? Why are people just doing this? I mean, that's going to make me nauseous, if anything else. Like, if I'm having anxiety and I'm like kind of slightly panicking and worrying, and I just see thousands of people doing this, I'm kind of losing my mind at that point. Hey, what's up, a-holes? Thanks so much for tuning back into the Holistic A-Hole YouTube channel, where my mission is to empower you with the freshest health news and help you live an obnoxiously happy, healthy life. If it's your first time here, please remember to hit the subscribe button and also click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time a new video drops. And please smash that like button, because I can't live without the approval of complete strangers. I think we've hit that point where here in our society, I don't know if this just is an American thing or an international thing, but we have reached a point that we are so mentally ill and disturbed that we are not even allowed to clap anymore. There are institutions, there are universities that are banning clapping in favor of jazz hands because clapping apparently triggers anxiety. Let's read about it right here. Oxford University bans clapping over fears that it triggers anxiety. That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild that you are now tying clapping into anxiety, you know? I've been around a lot of clapping. Don't mean to brag, but I've been around a lot of clapping. I was a comedian for years. I heard plenty of clapping. I've always been on the microphone in front of people. That's nice, you know? But even if it's not about me, it's like, you know, go to a sporting event, there's clapping. Go to the theater, there's clapping. There's clapping everywhere. It's just, I don't even know why we clap. I don't know how we invented it. I don't know if, you know, at the beginning of human evolution, somebody invented fire and then a guy just was like maybe trying to swat a mosquito and he just was smacking it. And the guy who invented fire was like, and there's a guy just, and then from that point on, we just were like, clapping's amazing. What do you like? Where does it even come from? It's like an internal, I don't know, seizure almost, like an impulse. Like you just are like, I love it. This is great. This is fantastic. It's just our human nature, you know. What's the next thing we're saying? We're saying you can't blink anymore. Blinking triggers anxiety in people. So if you feel the need to blink, just raise your eyebrows. And then we'll understand that you're trying to blink. And now that I've talked about blinking, I can't stop blinking. Fuck, this is gonna be a hard one. So this is where we're at in society. We are Oxford University is the microcosm of an even bigger problem that now people are just triggered at literally anything. So let's read it and give it a chance. Let's see what it has to say. Students are urging the University of Oxford to ban clapping out of fears it could trigger anxiety. Representatives from the student union passed a motion last week to replace clapping with jazz hands. They hope this will make events more inclusive and accessible for those with the mental health condition. So are you telling me that people with anxiety have not been going to, functions and events because of the clapping? Look, whenever I felt anxiety, especially social anxiety, it wasn't the clapping that was making me anxious. It was just the being around other people part and looking people in the eye and having to, you know, have a conversation. Nowhere in that mix has there been clapping. It's kind of more like, man, I have to go and actually, Jesus, put on a clean pair of clothes. That's anxiety. Are we going to start banning clothes? Are we just going to wear uniforms? Because if we just wear uniforms, that would take away a whole bunch of anxiety for a whole lot of people. You don't got to look in your closet and make tough decisions. I don't know. Do I wear the collared shirt? Do I wear the t-shirt? Do I wear the tank top? Do I wear these shorts? these shorts kind of show my ass. Let me wear those shorts. Do I pull my socks up? Do I wear ankle socks? Do I wear flip-flops? Look, you're getting anxious just me going through all the decisions I got to make to dress up in this made-up situation. So, yeah, people just are anxious for so many reasons, okay? Maybe clapping plays into it. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I've never studied, the actual effects of clapping to mental stimulus, to what neurotransmitters fire here and there, or what neurotransmitters don't fire. But I'm pretty confident that anxiety is not there is no cause and effect between clapping and anxiety. But let's continue and see if I'm wrong. This comes after the University of Manchester made international headlines for passing a similar motion in September last year. Never one to shy away from controversy, TV presenter Piers Morgan accused Britain of losing its mind. Pier, you're getting better. Rosen McClellan, sabbatical officer, said the policy was proposed in order to encourage the use of British Sign Language clapping, better known as jazz hands, during our democratic events to make those events even more accessible and inclusive for all, including people who suffer from anxiety. I'll tell you, if I'm experiencing anxiety and I'm at an event, nothing will give me more anxiety than just people waving their hands like jazz hands. Because at that point, I'm looking around like, okay, is something for sale? Are we trying to wave some kind of help down? Are we trying to wave down a helicopter? Is something going down? Is there a volcano exploding? What does this mean? Why are people just doing this? I mean, that's going to make me nauseous, if anything else. Like, if I'm having anxiety and I'm like kind of slightly panicking and worrying, and I just see thousands of people doing this, I'm kind of losing my mind at that point. At least if people are clapping, that almost gives me a sense of relief, like, oh, good, all right, we're all together on this, clapping for a thing for no reason that shouldn't trigger anybody's anxiety, except for the fact that people have to write clickbait articles, and schools need to introduce bills and legislation because they're not PC enough. It's bonkers. Inclusivity is one of the student union's founding principles. We recognize certain groups are unrepresented in political environments, and we are working to address that. This policy is one way of doing so inside Oxford Student Union. If there's one thing I've learned, is that you cannot be inclusive of everybody. If you try to make everybody happy, you end up making nobody happy. This is like one of the number one rules of business and of building an audience. Which clearly, you look at my YouTube numbers, I know a lot about, but you can't make everybody happy. I've tried. You absolutely fail. You start coming up with ridiculous policies like banning clapping when you try to make everybody happy. Look how bad the NFL right now is suffering, because what are they doing? They're trying to include everybody. They're trying to bring they have this violent sport that for almost 100 years, mostly only men watched, and there was nothing wrong with it. Most women, at least women I knew and dated and married, had zero interest in football. They would pretend like they were into football, but they were like, come game time, be like, I'd rather go look at Pinterest or something. Look at Pinterest, Christmas decorations or Thanksgiving recipes. I don't want to watch football. But this is what the NFL is doing, is they're doing everything they can to bring women into watching football. Now, if you're a woman and you like football, watch football, right? But the NFL does not have to go out of its way to bring women in to watch football. So this is why now men now are losing interest in football, because Jesus Christ, it's been completely pussified. You can't hit the quarterback anymore. You can't hit receivers over the middle. It's a violent sport. Anybody who's ever played football knows it's a violent sport. Anybody who's playing football wants it to be more violent. But this is what happens when you try to make everybody happy, right? You start coming up with ridiculous things, and I don't know how ridiculous you have to make the laws to make it so that you finally hit that point where everybody feels included. But especially universities, I mean, when you're 18, 19 years old, part of life is feeling excluded. And, part of becoming a man or a woman or just a grown-up in general is learning how to adapt in social situations. You can't walk into social situations, expect to grow as a person because people are just catering it to you. You have to learn your place in the world. And look, you're not going to like everything. You're not going to like everything, right? Like I said, some people don't like football, but the NFL is trying to get them into watching football. I don't like comic books. And as far as I can tell, comic books aren't doing everything they can to bring someone like me in. In fact, I think if anything, entertainment doubles down on its audience and they say, look, this is who we're trying to get. We're trying to get, fat nerds who, like Cheetos and got no plans to ever kiss women. That's our demographic. Let's give them more of the stuff that makes them feel good, right? They're not trying to get cool alpha males like me. Students at the University of Manchester voted to ditch clapping, whooping, cheering, Students at the University of Manchester voted to ditch clapping, whooping, and cheering at the union's democratic events last year, arguing they can be distressing for those with autism, sensory issues, or deafness. Hey, look, I can't speak for autism or sensory issues, but deafness, if are deaf people really getting disturbed by clapping and whooping? If anything, I think that's like the best defense against clapping and whooping and cheering. Just to be deaf, be like, yeah, everybody looks like they're having a good time here. I think the jazz hands would probably freak me out even more. Jeb Bush, brother of former U.S. President George W. Bush, simply said, not cool. University of Manchester, not cool. And Jeb Bush knows cool. In response to the negative press, the union spokesperson said, the policy was proposed in order to encourage the use of British Sign Language clapping during our democratic events to make those events even more accessible. We are not banning audible clapping. We understand some people may be more comfortable to continue using it. Okay, let's go down here, because this is the part I'm interested in. Does clapping trigger anxiety? Loud noises are not considered a common cause of anxiety. However, a condition called hyperacusis can make everyday sounds like chewing, barking, and jingling coins sound louder than they are. The condition can be triggered by tinnitus, a head injury, or Lyme disease. While it may not seem serious, a health service warns a hyperacusis suffers relationships, work, and a general well-being can all be affected. Many autistic people also experience meltdowns when they feel overwhelmed. Okay, so look. We know, do loud noises trigger anxiety? Well, apparently not as much as things like chewing, barking, and jingling coins. Yes, I can attest. Chewing drives me absolutely up the wall. Listening to somebody, there's nothing worse than listening to somebody chew. If we can replace the sound of chewing with jazz hands, I'd be all for that. Jingling coins, I don't know. That's never really been a bother to me. I don't see many people jingling coins that much anymore. This isn't, I don't know, the 1920s and, some guy with a top hat and a fucking monocle walking down the street jingling coins because he's the wealthiest person in town. Okay, Monopoly man, we get it. You're loaded because you're jingling a handful of nickels and dimes and quarters, but some of us get nervous when people clap. So if you can tone that shit down a little bit, where does clapping even fit into this whole thing? Here's the other thing too. Autistic people can experience meltdowns when they feel overwhelmed. Look, I'm not minimizing, the symptoms of an autistic person. Obviously, autism is becoming incredibly, disturbingly more prevalent in our society. But we cannot cater society to people who are autistic, right? We can be helpful, we can be polite and considerate, and we can do everything we can to try to figure out why more people are becoming autistic. But we can't start taking all of these societal norms that have built our society to be, for the most part, as strong as it is, and start dumbing them down. And I use dumb only in the sense of like, hey, we have to make it less than what it is, because that's essentially what we're doing, to cater to autistic people. if you're an autistic person and you go to a football game, you have to anticipate there's going to be loud noises. If you're an autistic person and you go to the theater, or you go to, or somebody brings you to these events, or you go to an event, if you go to a concert, if you go to somewhere where people are clapping, you have to understand that that's what you're getting into. You wouldn't go to it because you expect people to not do the thing that people have been doing for, I would imagine, thousands of years at this point, to show their appreciation of the sensory input that they're getting. I get it. What are we going to do? Are we going to take away car horns now? Are we going to make it so that cars don't make enough sounds on the streets? Are we going to just start, I don't know, put a, piece of cloth in your ear, put earplugs in or whatever? I don't know what to tell you. We can't keep doing this, dumbing our society down because we have an autism problem. We just can't do it. It doesn't make sense. I know it sounds terrible, and I feel like a piece of shit for saying that, but come on, man. This is society. You can't make everybody happy. People live with handicaps, and we have to do the best we can to cater to those handicaps, but we can't start changing the fundamental way that different societal norms work to keep everybody involved. It's just not how the world works. And I mean, this article just kind of goes on a little bit more, talking about the autism thing, and this kind of whole deaf person, jazz hands. Look, anxiety is a serious problem in our society, and jazz hands in place of clapping is just not going to fix the problem, okay? It's just catering to encourage more of that problem. If we want to, let's look at the actual real triggers of what causes or what has been shown to lead to anxiety. Diet, excessive amounts of sugar, processed food, GMOs, exposure to chemicals. We got, what else? Dairy. We got, alcohol is a huge problem when it comes to anxiety. Did you know that when you drink alcohol, up to 5 days after you last drank alcohol, you can trigger the output of excessive amounts of cortisol, stress hormone. So just because you might not feel it in a hangover, basically what you do is every time you drink, you are programming your body to be more stressed out as a natural default, right? But we never talk about that. We never associate alcohol to anxiety, or at least, into something like this crazy story. And what are college kids doing on the reg? Probably drinking, if they're cool. If you're not cool and you just get anxious at clapping, that makes you even less cool. So it's time to get cool, start drinking, but know that if you feel anxious after 5 days after you drink, well, it's probably the drinking. And no, you shouldn't drink. I shouldn't tell you what you shouldn't do. You should do what makes you happy. In college, drinking made me happy, but then it became a problem later on in life, so I don't encourage it. So if you're in college and you're watching this, first of all, you have to be at least 18 to watch this because of the new YouTube COPPA rules, but don't drink. It's stupid. It's for losers. You'll end up as a late 30s-year-old man making YouTube videos in your sweet studio in Puerto Rico. But I'd love to know what you guys think. I know this is a hot topic for some people, but are you in favor of these new rules to cater to people with anxiety by going so far as to ban clapping in public schools or in private universities, or even in some cases in public? Should we be replacing clapping with jazz hands? Do you just do jazz hands in your normal everyday life anyway, so this isn't really a big deal to you? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, and be sure to catch up with more videos from the Holistic A-Hole. I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.